there! I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and yeah, this is a bit of a weird week. And this, it's Billboard BREAKDOwn. I don't remember. Or rather, this week feels like a delayed fuse. By all accounts, we're in between album bombs. Harry Styles last week, probably getting the combined presence of BTS and Luke Combs next week. I'd put money on the latter being bigger. But one thing I've noticed with the album bombs of this past year in comparison with previous is that more of them stick around, and by that I mean more entries. You'll still see significant dropbacks within a week, but more often than not, we are getting multiple songs getting semi-serious runway beyond their debut, where there's just a little bit more stability within the streamers than you might otherwise expect, given all the social media buzz implying that nothing sticks around. Granted, I'm not sure it's a net positive if A, most of what sticks around isn't that good, and B, it's rare that we see any of these songs sticking around running up long enough to get a year-end list spot, so they're just hogging space, which could go to more promising singles that are playing the long game and struggling to force their way in, but that's a much longer conversation, and let's be honest, a pretty transitional week. And this week's gonna run long anyway. Anyway, we got our top 10, where I'll admit I'm kind of surprised that Choosing Texas by Ella Langley is holding that number one, breaking some records for women in country. Although, at least with BTS coming, I can imagine it all ends at least temporarily this week, only exacerbated by the radio finally running out of gas, even despite streaming dominance. And yet that was handily enough over Man I Need by Olivia Dean at number 2, and at this point, I don't see the window for her to take the top spot. Streaming might be up a little, and she's got the radio edge, but she's falling back in real time, and she's about to weather a gauntlet that will not be kind to any sort of meager streaming gains. What'll probably have more luck is I Just Might by Bruno Mars at number 3. It's losing on streaming, but with the rare case when it's running up the score on radio, it's hard for them to care that much. Now, as I unfortunately predicted, Ordinary by Alex Warren wound up taking advantage of Harry Styles' losses ahead of him to jump to number 4. A shockingly stable streaming and radio week mostly helped that along. But we also saw a significant jump for Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters up to number 5. Apparently, a lot of this seems to be driven off of the sales and streams, probably egged on by the Academy Awards as I predicted. Probably will not remain consistent, but it was enough to get over Stateside by Pink Pantheress and Zara Larsson holding at number 6, which saw a little streaming gain and seems to finally have a bit of radio, but it might be too little too late. Then we got 2 tracks from Taylor Swift. First, Opalite at number 7, seizing some gains. The radio might be dumping it, but a good streaming week tends to matter a little bit more. And The Fate of Ophelia holding sway at number 8, which actually has more of an edge on streaming at the moment, but considerably weaker airplay. And this now sees an opening for a new arrival, one that I'm actually rather happy to see. So Easy to Fall in Love by Olivia Dean at number 9. The radio's thrown a lot behind this, but I get the impression the streaming margin isn't quite strong enough to make it a bigger hit. I'll be really shocked if this gets much higher post-album bomb in a couple of weeks. Finally, and this held up better than I expected, American Girls by Harry Styles only fell to number 10. This has obvious hit written all over it, at least compared to Aperture, and the fact that the streaming is still stable while the radio is once again slow to get on board might be a sign folks kind of agree with that. We'll see how well it holds up. I think it's got potential. Now, this naturally takes us to our losers and dropouts, and it shouldn't be surprising that this was kind of a busy week, even in the latter group. Yeah, we got the expected Bad Bunny exits for Ballet Inolvidable and Nueve York, but we also saw how it's done from K-pop Demon Hunters on the cusp of a year-end list spot. A similar case for A Couple Minutes by Olivia Dean, even if Nice to Each Other appears to have fallen well short. The surprise for me was Better Me For You Brown Eyes by Max McNown. It's actually stuck around for a lot longer than I expected, but it's probably got a year-end list spot on lock well after its debut on other charts a couple of years ago. Interesting to see. Now the losers, outside of I Thought I Saw Your Face Today by She and Him, somehow still here at 95, probably gone next week. The story's all just Harry Styles. Let's run through from the top down. Aperture fell to 22, Coming Up Roses hit 35, Ready Steady Go hit 41, Taste Back at 42, Pop at 54, Are You Listening Yet at 57, Dance No More at 58, The Waiting Game at 60, Carla's Song at 63, Season 2 Weight Loss at 67, and Paint by Numbers at 87. Wow, folks don't like that one. But naturally, between the album bombs, we got our returns and gains, all probably going to be short-lived, but it's the thought that mostly counts. In songs least likely to stick around, it's probably our returns. We saw Call Back by Don Toliver at 100, Don't We by Morgan Wallen showing up at 98, Stay Here for Life by A$AP Rocky and Brent Faiyaz at 97, Dono by Peso Pluma and Tito Double P at 96, and then maybe songs that got a little bit more of a shot, like Wedding Dress by Megan Moroney at 78, or Zoo by Shakira for some reason coming back at 73. But then we got a significant number of gains, where I'm hard-pressed to not think that some of these are coming bigger hits for the rest of 2026 if they can weather the album bombs. And the crop is, as expected, pretty mixed. Let's start with the debuts from last week that actually got traction. I'm not complaining about In My Room by Julia Wolf up to 64. I could largely skip Watching Us by Wale and Leon Thomas, but the returns gave me pause with Mrs. Trendsetter by Lil Baby at 81, or especially Elizabeth Taylor by Taylor Swift at 59. With the radio push in full swing for the latter, I wouldn't be surprised if she locks down a year-end list spot in record time, even if it doesn't get back to the top 10. But the only continued gain is from Zara Larsson, who actually had a good week with Midnight Sun up to 39, bringing Lush Life Along With It to 37. Both songs are good to great. I guess we're finally going to have her moment. And while we're talking about some really good music, I Love It, I Love It, I Love It by Bella K is absolutely a thing now at 18. The Great Divide by Noah Kahan hit 29. Days Like These by Luke Combs is kind of preempting his own album bomb push at 46. And Rain Dance by Dave and Thames continues to class up the joint at 53. But the rest here... Okay, the Dominic Fike thing was cute, but we don't need Baby Doll at 19 or White Keys at 40. And Let 'Em Know continuing the T.I. comeback at 36. Or It Depends by Chris Brown and Bryson Tiller somehow still here at 38. Or Change My Mind by Riley Green continuing to piss all over his potential at 49. Now again, I don't expect a lot of traction for the majority of these, but again, the thought matters. Let's run through the rest pretty quickly. Dracula by Tame Impala is somehow still here at 25. It's gonna make the year-end list for 2026, which is mind-boggling as someone who knew Tame Impala 15 years ago. Then you got The Fall by Cody Johnson at 31, Tit for Tat by Tate McRae rebounding to 34, and Pop That Thang by DaBaby somehow still having some juice at 49. Yeah, apparently this is still happening, folks. It's gonna be that kind of year, apparently. But if you think this list is all over the damn place, you need to see this pretty healthy list of debuts coming up here. Number 94, Ever Since You Left Me by Max B and French Montana.
More diamonds, more gold, more motion, more hoes. I went deaf on the bitch. I went deaf on the bitch.
I'll be honest, I should not be as surprised to see this song charting as I am. For those of you who don't know, Max B is a New York rapper who actually first saw his breakout in the mid-2000s working with Jim Jones, where, courtesy of a truly ridiculous falling out that turned violent, he spent over 20 years in prison for aggravated manslaughter, and that was taking the plea deal. But in November of last year, he actually got out of jail, and his comeback song has steadily worked its way up through New York radio, especially alongside the affiliation with his longtime friend French Montana. Those who actually remember the whole Coke Wave mixtape of 2009, that's a series of mixtapes he's maintained into its 3.5 Narcos edition, dropping a couple months ago, which is now how we have this. And look, I'm no French Montana fan, but this is not a bad pocket for him to be in, and the song is somewhat credible, despite barely running 2 minutes and being more driven off of French Montana's hook and a liberal Kacey and the Sunshine Band sample of That's the Way I Like It than anything else. The reality is that you're never going to get much in the way of content here, with Max B's gravelly voice coaxed through the auto-tune as they drop into this post-breakup flex, blocking out the acts who left them as they rep New York City hard with brand names and a lot of flashy outfits. But you know there's a way of doing that somewhat well, and they're not precisely bad at it. The two-step dance groove has a certain bassy swagger, the sample loop's pretty slick, the call and response built in on the hook, it's fine, and even though this is dumb, I can see it kind of working. Yeah, pretty decent vibe. I'll take it. Unlike number 91, Trade Places by Jack Harlow.
Find somewhere that we can walk around together, see, cause I don't want you by yourself. You put up your hair and pick out what you wanna wear. I'm coming, won't you say the word? We can call it when you're ready to. Show me what you really wanna do.
Look, the first thought that went through my head when I heard Jack Harlow's largely underwhelming neo-soul R&B experiment was, yeah, that's sure a Mac Miller imitation he's not pulling off. And as a non-fan of both of them, I don't need to waste my time with this. And when I saw the bad press run and the worst quotes in and out of context, where I do think there is an interesting conversation about how white guys get a little too into R&B, which is distinctly different with how they often engage with hip-hop, I don't need Jack Harlow to be the focal point of that conversation. So for the one crossover charting song he got, yeah, the watery bass knock with the hints of trumpet and organ, it's a familiar and likable vibe. But it's in service of Jack Harlow not remotely having the tighter vibe or cool expressiveness in order to support it well. At least Robin Thicke had a robust knowledge of the classics and a credible falsetto. And the lyrics... Look, part of Jack Harlow's appeal is that laid-back cool, and occasionally some slick one-liners, and he just doesn't have either of them here. He's trying to pick up this girl, respect her space, but then he wants to bring the woman out of her, catch her a little bit by surprise. But it's the first verse where he keeps wishing that he was the fence or the lamppost or the handrail that she leans on that might be unintentionally revealing. He's fine being considered as furniture, objects in the room that are ignored if they're not used for a purpose, which might as well be true for the music too. Or just a whole lot of wood. The production's good enough that it's not bad by any means, but talk about doing nothing with it. Number 90, I Ain't No Cowboy by Luke Combs.
We done rode off together in the setting sun, instead of watching her ride out of my life.
At some point, I'll get around to writing about that new Luke Combs album, probably on my Discord first for a short review, but he's been slow walking the singles, many of which left me concerned, but I'm also hearing he's got more than a few deep cuts that are better. We're gonna have to see. This appears to be one of the promo singles, seeing a little early play, and honestly, I like it more than most of what I've heard so far. A pretty simple, slower tempo, neo-traditional song with some warm resonator guitar and touches of organ about that wild girl that got away, where he wished he could have been the cowboy in order to wrangle her rather than watching her gallop off into the sunset. Luke Combs is pretty good at selling this sort of wistful melancholy, playing a little bit more understated, even if I think the second verse really needed another 4 bars to fully balance out the song, especially when there is no bridge. But that's also kind of all there is here. I might be a sucker for this sort of reflection, but rooting it in the I ain't a cowboy but I wish I was, that strikes me as a weird framing, especially as the late Toby Keith recorded Should Have Been a Cowboy, which is a far better song that touches a lot of similar territory with way more detail. So yeah, this is good. But after Luke Combs wrote Fathers and Sons, even if this was once again treading back towards the mainstream, I kind of expect a little more. Number 85, Woman by Kane Brown.
But I got a woman, yeah, I got a woman right here in my hands. They talking about girls, but I got a woman, yeah, I got a woman. Oh yeah, and she got a man.
Whereas I wish I could expect more from Kane Brown these days, I'm actually a little bit surprised this appears to be a newer song and not some misbegotten slice of boyfriend country stuck to an album 2 years old. But to say he has been a huge disappointment since he broke out nearly 10 years ago would be kind of understating it for me. And this certainly doesn't change things all that much, although paradoxically, I'm not sure this is entirely Kane Brown's fault. This is a song with a little bit more old-fashioned twangy rollick with some actual fiddle, where the boys are talking about hitting out the bars, but he's staying home, because they're all talking about girls, but he's got a woman at home. and she's got a man. Wouldn't it be funny if she's not actually talking about Kane Brown, but some other dude? That would be a swerve. But of course we don't get that, and this is corny as hell. But the real problem's the producer, Dan Huff. I always knew he had a breezier set of tones for the guitars and percussion, but the wheezy and really annoying twang of the electric guitar and the fizzy whooshing, minus any actual groove in the bass line, all comes across way too over-polished to support Kane Brown's vocals. It sounds like it's been shrink-wrapped for a commercial. I was almost surprised that they had live drums. So yeah, if Kane Brown is staying home from the party, I don't think we're missing much. It's not good. Next. Number 84, All I Did Was Dream of You by beabadoobee featuring the Marias.
Stay or just leave me be.
I'm honestly surprised that to this day, the only song that's broken through on the charts from beabadoobee is, well, her credit on Powfu's deathbed in 2020. If you look behind the scenes and see that she signed a dirty hit that sadly makes way more sense, a label seemingly unable to launch stateside crossover even for their flagship act and co-owners, the 1975, but we actually did get the single with a boost from the Marias, and sure, I get why it works. The gauzy dream pop guitars with some piano accented smolder as the bass groove and guitar feedback begins to reflect some of that 90s crossover shoegaze, down to the noisy breakdown cutting across the hook. It's a little bit frustrating, it's kind of tinny on the outro, but I'm nitpicking there. Along with the sweeter vocals from both women as they try to sit amidst this relationship and enjoy it, it also seems on the cusp of falling apart. Where amidst all the smoke and distortion, they just want to see clearly in it all. Now, this is a familiar enough template in this subgenre. I'm fairly certain Hatchie has made this song at least 4 times already, but there are some details that come together when the relationship is otherwise an easy fit, that this sort of tension bleeding across both past and present tense, it seems to capture how when you're fighting and it seems like it's all at the end, it's just flashing in front of your eyes. I do think it could have afforded a little bit more explosive punch, or maybe just one more notch, take the vocals higher on the hook. I know beabadoobee's capable of it, but in the meantime, yeah, you know what, it's good. I'll stick up for this. Number 77, Rein Me In by Sam Fender and Olivia Dean.
If I stop, it's just pain. Please don't rein me
Oh, I've known this one was coming for a while. If you're not familiar with Sam Fender, be it you from the United States, I've got a review from last year where I went in at length on his UK Springsteen affectation that's never clicked as strongly as one might hope for a lot of complicated reasons. But when I saw him pair up with Olivia Dean and rocket straight up to the top of the UK official charts, I knew this might be his moment stateside as a deluxe remix single tacked onto his album from last year, People Watching. Now, I didn't really mention the original Rein Me In when I reviewed the album, didn't connect with it either. The hazy grayscale, the rollicking twinkle of the acoustic production, even if I liked the lower guitar and bass line alongside the sax solo, but then you had the relationship that he threw away as he was wallowing in his own post-relationship angst. It required me to really connect with Sam Fender as a presence on record, and well, I'm sorry, it didn't take. So Olivia Dean operating as a shot of rationality to cut through his bullshit and maybe even try and reconcile, it's kind of inspired. Reminds me a little of Kacey Musgraves showing up on Noah Kahan's She Calls Me Back. And well, I don't think Olivia Dean has blended the best in the mix to amplify her presence. She seems to nail that soulful mid-80s Americana vocal that makes this markedly a better song. But look, I'm sorry, I just don't get the same magnetism or soulful power from Sam Fender that a lot of people hear. And when you put him alongside Olivia Dean's natural charisma, where you can hear her when she's half buried, I've got even less patience for him, where I even found myself giving Noah Kahan more grace. So, yeah, it's fine. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a hit. I just don't think it's really that special. That's kind of disappointing. Number 75, Breathe by Malcolm Todd.
You miss it, it's been so long. If you would leave it to me, I could teach you when you forgot. I'll tell you, baby.
I don't know who decided that we wanted to make this year the year of Malcolm Todd, but apparently he's now got a third song, one of his newer ones, and apparently this is the one people appear to like. I still have my doubts, given that I still find him an astonishingly weak presence on the microphone, but okay, I'll give him a proper chance, and okay, I think I hear what might work here. For one, the groove is considerably funkier with the hazy cycle of acoustics, even if the kick drum and the sandy cymbals either sound weirdly insistent or outright dirty and perfunctory. By the time the synths slide in, it's trying to push a brand of R&B that's at least trying to be more sensual. From the husky half rap of the verse to the cooing on the hook, where he's trying to encourage this hookup. Reminds me a lot of the willowy white R&B adjacent acts that were trying to be a thing mostly in the 2010s with the boy band overdubs, but it's relying on Malcolm Todd to convey that charisma, who sounds a lot more like Darren Criss doing a 2018 Shawn Mendes impression. Better than he usually is, but this breathy ha-ha running through the song, I just have me rolling my eyes. I don't buy it. I'll take Jack Harlow's attempt at R&B over this. Mediocrity is better than me and awful, but not by that much. Number 55, Dry Spell by Kacey Musgraves.
My hands to myself, 911, it's officially a cry for help. Y'all, I'm going through a dry spell, yep.
I don't know what to make of Kacey Musgraves' album rollout this time, because one of the last words I would associate with her and her music is horny. I mean, that's always been part of the appeal rooted in her celebrity, that she's gorgeous with an endlessly sweet vocal timbre, but her playing into that in her music feels kind of new, and it had me at least curious where she was going, especially debuting this high, and, well, I never expected that we would get a song about Kacey Musgraves complaining that she's going through a year-long dry spell and not getting laid, with the most country instrumentation she's had in damn near a decade, featuring even touches of Spanish guitar and a deeper reverb on the lead, and yeah, that's where this is. And not for nothing, if the statistics are suggesting that folks are having less sex than usual these days, I get why it might be relatable in debuting this high. But I think there's two problems. The first being the vocal production sounding a lot more weirdly touched up and processed. I know why one might do it to accentuate disaffection, but it plays against her natural strengths as a singer. And for the second point, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's not a very sexy song, and it really could have been. Actually take the step to break said dry spell. This seems more dejected to it running a lot longer, and even if I like the dusty, smoky texture of the production, and the music video's hilarious, doubling down on no satisfaction feels like a real missed opportunity. I think it's not really playing to her strengths. I mean, come on, you got dweebs like Malcolm Todd and Jack Harlow trying to make romantic baby-making music, and Kacey Musgraves is not getting laid. Something's very wrong here. I think the song's pretty good in execution of what it's trying to do, but I really wanted to like it more. Number 45, Emotion Party by BossMan Dlow.
I don't wanna play with your baby, what's your number? I'm a boss, don't even waste your time with a runner. We don't care about what you had, we ain't see that. Rich nigga shit, baby, that's where you wanna be at. Nothing but money on my mind, I'm a cash addict. Young nigga lit, I remember when they laughed at me.
Look, I've never gotten the BossMan Dlow hype. I did not expect it would change with this song, which features precisely one verse and it barely runs 90 seconds. And now having heard the thing that somehow nearly got into the top 40, yeah, I'm still not remotely convinced. With his flow that's been tidied up a little bit, but now sounds perpetually surprised, amidst those weedy trap knock where there's actually a little bit more gloss and swing to the groove, even if the bass mastering is really grainy as all hell. But his content, it's just all stock flexing, where even if he's trying to pick up this girl on his hook, the verse is all about trying to test her that she can ride with him while he Uber eats the food delivery. No date for you. Look, maybe I just remember more of the late 2010s trap hits, but this feels so lazy to me. The entire song from the flexing on down sounds really cheap and low effort, and the fact that we can't even get a second verse behind some promising production is a problem. I'm gonna forget this exists in record time. Move on. Number 43, The Visitor by Sienna Spiro.
If that's all we are, no, I'll always be a visitor. In your arms.
You know, maybe it was my fault having any desperate hope that this was a Regina Spektor deep cut cover and not just, well, another Sienna Spiro song, who is in the running for one of the worst new acts of 2026. But hey, maybe third time's the charm and this won't suck, and I'll be honest, it is probably the best of the songs I have heard from her thus far. Yeah, the piano work is beyond basic, and the rest of the arrangement feels pretty stock, even if she brings a pretty lush string section to bear, and Sienna Spiro's vocal tone sounds like she's perpetually got a head cold, but I actually do like the lyrical content. Spiro's gone on record feeling that much of her life feels very transitory, where she can often feel like a visitor in other people's lives and that everything's got an expiry date. As an entertainer, I can imagine there's some metatext there. So this song is more just about hoping to make a good memory, even if she knows none of it's built to last. Now, I still don't love how much she seems like her own worst enemy. Why be so self-destructive on the second verse unless you're seriously depressed and constantly questioning your self-worth, which, okay, you know what, given her catalog, that might just be true, but I'm still left thinking that we've got a good song in concept, but the execution is really threadbare. Easily the most I've liked one of her songs to date. I'll keep this around. I get why it works. Just not really much to add to it. That's all. And finally, number 20, Porch Light by Noah Kahan.
Leave the porch light on. Broken each morning.
Okay, once again, it seems like I'm relying on Noah Kahan to save this week, especially after The Great Divide was way better than it has any right to be. Still waiting on that Rustin Kelly remix. That'd be swell, and it'd be money. Now, this looked to have a much different vibe. Produced by Aaron Dessner of The National, here Noah Kahan is attempting to write from his mother's perspective, reflecting on him becoming famous. And honestly, it's not exactly a pleasant perspective, mostly because for as much as Noah Kahan has talked about his mental health in his music, and there's been discourse around it online, not much that I've seen, but I'll take him at his word, it's not been healthy for him, especially when he's been skipping out on his meds, and she doesn't really want to call him on it if that could compromise their relationship. That's actually a pretty potent emotional conflict, but while I won't call the song self-serving, there are moments that kind of rub me the wrong way here, where by the third verse, he's just talking about how he doesn't get home enough or help out with the family or visit nearly enough, as the hook accentuates, especially given that apparently the fans are now blaming her for his mental health problems, when apparently that's never been their actual experience outside of the art. His guilt is probably real, but I'd rather maybe her say it, not Noah Kahan's imagined version of her. Or maybe it's how Noah Kahan's voice gets so wispy as he jumps into his upper register where he places his entire hook, or the vocal cadence that doesn't quite nestle into the brittle acoustics as cleanly as the galloping minor key tempo ramps up. Aaron Dessner's production style is often so frail and spare, it needs a singer with more presence like a Matt Berninger or Taylor Swift who can command it, especially when the folk instrumentation gets a bit more diverse and could really use some more warmth. And Noah Kahan just does not get there. Don't get me wrong, I actually think this is some pretty ambitious subject matter. It's an interesting attempt. I respect Noah Kahan trying to become a better, or at least a more interesting writer, but it is a lesser song from him. It didn't fully work. At least for me. And that leaves a bizarrely diverse week here, where the best and the worst actually do not fall out easy. Latter group, look, I was tempted to give it to Malcolm Todd for Breathe or Jack Harlow, but Malcolm Todd's only getting the dishonorable mention, while Woman by Kane Brown's getting the bottom spot purely off that awful production job. We're gonna have to have that Dan Huff conversation sooner rather than later. He's becoming a problem. The best, it's not a definitive pick by any means, so yeah, I'm going with the tie for Beabadoobee and the Marias with All I Did Was Dream of You, balanced out with I Ain't No Cowboy by Luke Combs. Honorable mention, I guess Dry Spell by Kacey Musgraves, even if it's a bizarre pick, and y'all don't even know how close the Max B and French Montana song was. It's got a pretty strong hook there. Real bounce. But speaking of Luke Combs, he's going against BTS next week. Stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.